I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here with Dr. Ivers Freelander, and today we'd like to talk to you about giving thanks in advance. So often in our lives, we think about giving thanks for things that have already happened, but giving thanks in advance may be a new idea or a new concept for you. And we'd like to share some ideas about that with you because we believe that these are constructive ways of empowering and strengthening your own life. Giving thanks in advance really does set the stage for great things to happen, doesn't it, Iris?
Yes, indeed it does. And it's showing a confidence, a self-confidence and self-reliability. And we often talk about we have to be self-responsible, self-reliable, and that is, but we're giving God the credit. And that's as it should be, isn't it?
It is. Giving thanks in advance is probably a brand new concept for a lot of people. In New Thought and metaphysics, it is a fundamental teaching, and that is to claim that which truly is before we see it in the manifest world. And maybe we could talk just for a few minutes about that and how that works.
Well, it works according to divine laws that whatsoever you shall ask in prayer, believing you shall receive, our Lord told us. And so as we do give thanks in advance, then it's already manifest. And whatever we need is there for us all the time. It's just like life is like a loaf of bread. It's all there all the time. You can take all you want from it, but it's totally self-replenishing, would be a poor analogy perhaps. But another thing, if we just know in our hearts that something will be, then it will often be. And some people use that in the way of fear and other negativities. And then they say, as Job did, that which I feared has come upon me. So the laws of God are consistent, aren't they?
They are, absolutely. And this idea of giving thanks creates in our consciousness or in our awareness a realization of the truth. And one of the things that we can do, I think, is we can give thanks in advance when we're in the midst of a problem. And that's a good time to begin to give thanks in advance for the solution and for the direction that's going to come to us in the midst of this situation.
Yes, and I'd like to invite those who are listening to try it, give it a try, because they'll see a big difference. And also, not only will they see that it will come to pass, but their life will be more comfortable and easy as they wait for this happening, because then they won't have fear and anxiety, but they will just be self-assured that, yes, they know this is going to happen. And so it would be worth a try.
It would. Now, when we think about giving thanks, so often we think of blessing our food, giving thanks for food, or giving thanks for the freedoms that we have, or giving thanks for some benefit that we have. But giving thanks for the guidance and the direction that we're going to be given before we're even aware of it really sets up in our consciousness, in our mind, the process of finding the right solutions to problems.
Wonderful thought and a wonderful reminder that and again, we're having a positive mindset because we know that this is going to come to pass because we have the faith and trust. And our faith is justified, always justified. And if we find that it's not immediately, we find later that, yes, indeed, it really was. What was best comes to pass. So as we live a life of just knowing, the inner knowing, and having faith that what's right and good will occur, then we're more comfortable and at ease just to do whatever else it is we need to do.
Right. And we all go through these different experiences of life, and we spend a lot of time on this program and at the church and the center talking, and in our counseling talking to people about their ability to cope in a positive and affirmative way with the changing circumstances of life. And there's certainly no way we're going to avoid change or challenges there.
No, change is a very necessary part of life, and there's always that balance of positive, negative, and so forth. So if we didn't have change, we would just have static, and that wouldn't be very much fun. And also, we wouldn't grow, and we're here on earth to know God more fully. I think that's our primary mission, to know God more fully. And we do that as we go about day-to-day living, doing what we each individually are set out or set up to do. And so as we fulfill our role in our own personal destiny in life, then again, we're comfortable and we're at ease, and we just have that feeling that, yes, all is right in the world. It's like that poem years ago that we all learned, Pippa Passes, all is right with the world. And it's a wonderful feeling to be able to keep that equilibrium. And again, we do it to ourselves. We either give ourselves the ease and comfort of knowing and having faith, or we are feel anxiety plagued. And then when we are anxiety plagued, we don't have that ease of living.
Right. And that turbulence that people feel so often in their life really does come from that confused state of mind, doesn't it? Or confused state of consciousness, as we'd say in New Thought. So if people are always agitated, always confused, always concerned because of their anxieties and their fears, and believing that the situations that they find themselves in are situations over which they have no control, then life just goes on in a state of utter confusion, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And again, we bring it on ourselves. And I'm sure you've had those days yourself, and so have I. But we know the laws, God's laws, and we know what we have to do. And that's to just be positive and just keep on keeping on. And it's with the positive mindset, then we get through the day more easily and more wonderfully and more productively.
Right. So we can give thanks for the circumstance and situation, regardless of what it is, and we can give thanks for the fact that we are going to go through it, and we're probably going to grow through it if we do the right thing, and that because of the overcoming of difficulties and challenges of daily living, we begin to have more and greater confidence in our own abilities.
Yes, and I think we need to always remember that there are no wrong choices. We just deal with different choices in different ways because we learn from those, whatever choice we make. We learn that's part of life, and that's why we're here to keep on learning and growing and manifesting. So whatever we think, we manifest.
Uh-huh. Thoughts make things, and
Yes.
we've spent a lot of time talking about that. And we also talk a lot about the fact that we live in our minds and not in the world. So as we change our way of thinking about a circumstance in life, a situation in life, then the situation may not change, but its impact upon us changes radically, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. It does indeed. And it's hard to tell other people exactly how to go about living the life in that fashion, except it's just living the spiritually oriented life, regardless of what religion any individual would adhere to. It's living their own individual life in their own individual way to the highest of their ability, and not beating themselves over the head if they feel that they're not able to stay on top of it all the time, because that's part of change.
Right. And I think so often we do. We think there's a right and a wrong to everything. And of course, there's a right and wrong from a moral standpoint
Yes.
of the major issues of life. But in terms of decision making, there's not always always right and always wrong.
Th-
And the other point that I think we want to really touch upon, which you did so well, and we do so often in this program, is we talk about the fact that it doesn't matter what people believe. It doesn't matter what their faith tradition is. And nothing that we're talking about here is ever asking anyone to change their belief or their faith tradition or their church or religion. And so these principles and concepts can be applied to anyone's life in any faith tradition and can empower and strengthen them in a positive and affirmative way.
Yes, and each individual can use their own personal religious belief patterns to lead a better life. And so, again, it wouldn't be right or wrong. It would just be to use them to the best of their ability, each individual, and to treat the fellow man compassionately and well. And there's very few real rules, aren't there?
No, very few rules.
Yeah.
And the other issue I think that we think of so often is that these techniques have to be learned, when in fact all we have to do is realize them and claim them.
Yes, yes, and to live the life to the very highest of our ability is quite simple, because it's just doing from moment to moment, from day to day, what comes our way to the very best of our ability. And actually, we blame ourselves far more than is fair. We think we're not doing well when indeed we really truly are.
That's a very good point. I think we do blame ourselves. And if we don't blame ourselves, then we're often blaming someone else. So this whole issue of blame really is something that we need to get rid of and liberate ourselves from, and allow this spirit of thanksgiving that we're talking about to come through, rather than trying to place blame on, especially on circumstances and situations.
Yes, and so by giving thanks in advance, we are one up ahead of ourselves, because then we're in a positive mindset, and we have that attunement with God because we're thanking God, we're tuning with Creator God, And so that is a big step toward having a really good day, toward having a worthwhile life, toward feeling that that we really do count on earth.
Right. And our faith tradition teaches us that there is divine mind, that the presence and power of the divine of God has consciousness and awareness. And of course, we in all faith traditions believe that God is everywhere present and all knowing. And this all knowing presence is really what we're talking about in the context of discussion today, because if in fact God or the divine is all knowing, if we're able to align our thoughts and our thinking with divine mind, if our human mind is able to be aligned with divine mind, then we can, in fact, give thanks for the fact that we're going to be given the right direction to make the right decisions, to do the right things, and live the right life in the entire process. But we have to be open to the fact that it's not ourselves upon whom we depend. It is upon the connection that we have with the divine, and then we're guided and directed.
Yes, what I heard you just say is that living that way is faith made manifest. Giving thanks in advance is faith made manifest, and that's very, very
Good. We
good.
should do a book on that topic. So yes, it is. But giving thanks in advance does create that manifestation. And this issue of manifestation is tremendously important because some of our viewers may not be aware of the concept or the idea. But just a few moments ago, we talked about the fact that thoughts make things. And one of the fundamentals that we teach is that everything that exists has come out of thought. This chair was in someone's mind before it was conceived in mind before it became a reality. The same with the television that people are watching today, the same with everything. Everything comes out of mind. And so the thought process sets up the creative force that brings about manifestation. And if we begin to manifest in the spirit of thankfulness and thanksgiving for the answer or for the direction or for the guidance, then we've begun that manifestation or creation as soon as our thought process begins.
Yes, and that's a good thing. The first thing in the morning to give thanks, and many people I know do, and it's a very wise thing to do because it's setting the stage for all good things to happen. And also, it's setting the stage that we are accepting of good. And so, we need to have the open mind of accepting and feeling worthy. Because if we don't feel that we're worthy of whatever it is we expect, then we're pretty apt not to get it because we create our own destiny.
Right. And so we create really always, don't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. We're co-creators with Creator God, and I know I've said that in our church services at various times, and some people think that's really high and mighty, that it's not such it's not really a good idea. But I think God doesn't want us to be altogether subservient. We don't say we create; we say we're co-creators with Creator God, and indeed we are. And so, but we might ask ourselves, what are we creating? Because when God gave mankind free will, He gave us the opportunity to create as we wish. And so we might stop from time to time and ask ourselves, what am I creating? Just as we need to ask ourselves, are we expressing thanks in advance? Are we being grateful in advance? And are we indeed really showing gratitude? Because it's a moot question as to whether or not we really do. Because as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And so as only we would know.
Only we know what dwells within, and it
Yes.
is only we who can give thanks in advance for the things that we have, the blessings. We'd like to pause at this point in the program and offer you the opportunity to receive some literature so that you can continue to study the concepts and ideas we're sharing with you today.
We would like to give you the opportunity to explore and discover in your own home the new thought teachings that this program is sharing with you by sending you a free copy of one of these booklets. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807. Whatever your dream, whatever your vision, you can reach it through confident living.
Before the break, we were talking about the importance of, among other things, of accepting our good and being worthy of our good. And I guess in our counseling work, yours and mine, and at the church and various other places, we find that that is a real problem with people, isn't it? To feel really worthy.
Yes, it is, and it's very sad, isn't it, that people don't feel worthy. I counseled a young man last week who had been divorced, and he was feeling a few 3, 4 years ago, and he was feeling less than adequate in his own life. And as we talked, he really perked up and felt more wonderful about himself, and rightly so. And then it was interesting. We had quite a long session. And then in church on Sunday, you spoke very movingly to him of exactly what he had been dealing with. And it just gave the final gold cap to what we had talked about, he and I, during his counseling session. And that young man looked so different after the service on Sunday, because it seems that your talk sort of helped him put it all together. And he just looked so light-filled, and it was a joy to see, because he was feeling his own worth and knowing his own worth. And that's so wonderful that we're able to help people in that way, but it's sad that people need that extra push. But that's life, I suppose.
It is, and so many people are conditioned over many years through their childhood and adolescence and early adult years into the feeling of their worthlessness.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, many of us do that to other people with the words that we say and the way that we treat people, and then people accept it and it becomes a part of their consciousness and a part of their lives. And then their sense of unworthiness prevents them from claiming the good in life and the good in any circumstance and situation. So for those, giving thanks in advance really is also giving thanks in advance for a whole new way of thinking and for the ability to let go of those error thoughts or those mistaken opinions that had been given to us.
Yes, and we can help others just to get a leg up just by showing them their own self-worth and complimenting them in a sincere way, and being appreciative and grateful for little things. And certain people need to be validated before they can feel a self-worth, and we can do that to others just as we are validated by others. I know it really does my heart good, and I'm sure it does yours, when we're complimented on the work that we do. And so we can always remember to help others, and then those who are listening can consciously make the effort to help others, and then it goes out as a ripple.
Right. Wonderful points. In the last few minutes that we have, I'd like to touch on 2 points that I think are very important and very useful for our viewers. One is the issue of prosperity and abundance, and the second is the issue of health and healing and wellness, because we deal with both of those things, and both of those things are tremendously important to all of us. And at different points in time, we all face financial and economic challenges, and so we have to struggle sometimes seemingly to meet our obligations and to have the financial resources, the abundance and the prosperity that we want and need. And then at other times, we're faced with illness of ourselves or members of our family or loved ones or friends. And so giving thanks in advance and the manifestation that begins to create is very, very important when we deal with any of life's challenges, but certainly when we're dealing with limit or lack and we want to claim and create abundance, giving thanks in advance is the way to do it. And when we're faced with illness or disease, the way to seek and gain healing and to claim that healing is to give thanks in advance for the healing that's already manifest. And I'd like us to touch just on those 2 things because they're so important to everyone's lives. Prosperity, of course, comes about through the cycle of giving and receiving. And so that giving thanks and also circulating what we have creates and allows it to come back.
Yes, and just being grateful for what we have and accepting that what we have is what we have, and then working towards something different. But there are people, I've known many people, and I'm sure you have too, who have had adequate funds, but they feel impoverished. And it's in the mind, and like we always say, it's all in the mind. But it would be just changing the way of thinking so that we are again, is faith manifest. And if we have faith that everything's going to be taken care of, then it will. But we have to do our part. We can't just sit back and say everything's going to happen to us and for us, because we have to put forth our own effort. But as we do that, then if we do it with a positive thought, it's far more effective.
Absolutely. And so if we're faced with a financial difficulty and our checkbook hasn't the money in it that we need to pay our rent and to meet our obligations, then the thing to do is to give thanks for the abundance that is going to come forth, and to claim that, and to think that, and to expect that, and to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, and with a thankful heart and spirit, claim the reality of abundance, and allow that to come into our lives. On the healing side, one of the things that we do a lot of spiritual healing, we do a lot of counseling work with people who are facing life challenging diseases. And part of the process of spiritual healing and mind, body, spirit healing too, is to visualize the person already well. Isn't
Yeah.
that true?
Yes, it is. And it's their own mindset. And then we all have to die. And so I remember one lady who was terminally ill who said, well, she was healed spiritually and she was healed mentally, and her physical body was not healed. But she knew that it was not healed, and she accepted that fact. And I've seen that happen in many people who are ill. I was thinking of one specific lady, but there are many who have that. And those people who die comfortably and easily have come to that mindset, haven't they?
They have, and we have to deal with the fact, and we talk about this so often when people come to us for healing treatments, that the manifestation of the healing of the body or the overcoming of the disease may be an outcome of the healing process, but the healing that takes place is not with the body, it's with the inner person. And so the healing and the wholeness is always there. You and I and every one of us are always whole and complete all of the time, but our bodies become ill. And so our goal is to see beyond the appearance of that physical ailment, and to claim the reality of our health and wholeness in spirit. And then the ultimate healing for all of us is death.
Yes, but people meet death more happily, and it shows on the face of the person who's deceased. And I've seen it where they just glow. And I'm thinking of two different women who died, and they were past, one was past 80 and one was past 90. And they both said they had outgrown their bodies, but it was time for them to go. And they both accepted that. And they accepted that their death was inevitable, and they were meeting it happily, and not just to give up, but this is it. You know that they both expressed that they know this is their time, and so if we can do that, then we have fulfilled our life work, and we go out. And the way we go out, I think, makes a big difference on how alert we are when we go over. And so we all want to be alert and to know the wonders and joys of that inner space. And so as those women went and the way that they did, then I'm sure that they were so equally alert on the inner planes of being.
Yeah, this issue of consciousness and being aware, and of course we believe that when we move from this physical life into the eternal or the invisible life, that we maintain a conscious awareness.
Yeah.
And if we can maintain a conscious awareness during the process, and I'm not talking about someone who's conversing,
Yeah.
I'm talking about someone who is alert and whole and complete in the end of their physical existence, the spiritual liberation becomes such more of a dynamic experience, and we've seen and heard of that quite extensively.
Yes, and their inner knowing is ever prevalent, and their inner knowing takes them from this dimension to the next dimension, and that's a wonderful thing to know that they go out with such great joy. And of course, they're met on the inner by those who express deep, deep, deep love, more love than we would ever imagine being possible. And so as they do that, their faith is justified.
Right. There's a wonderful organization here in Southern California called the Association for Conscious Dying, which is devoted to that purpose, and it provides educational outreach. And certainly, we don't know them well, and they're not a part of our organization, but I know the works that they do, and their goal is to create a preparation for death. And part of that is Thanksgiving in advance, but also working toward the reality of being conscious
Mhm.
as persons in the process of
Mhm.
death and to experience it. And after all, we are here to experience all of the experiences of life, including the last ones, aren't we?
Yes, yes, indeed. And also, hearing, they say, is the last sense that we leave, and that we leave with. And so we might mention to our listeners that they speak positively to those who are going, and happily and joyously, and rejoice that they really are going to something better, because it makes a big difference from what I've heard from those who have deceased and come back and given messages, that the attitude of the people who surround them and love them makes a big difference in how well they can be at ease on the inner planes. And so and then it expresses our deep love in a different way, but in a more joyous, wonderful way.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And so what we really need to do is to give thanks in advance for a good life, even before it's over, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and to give thanks for everything that happens, regardless whether it's life or death or illness. And who are we to think that we don't deserve to have our bodies be ill from time to time? Of course, that's going to happen to us, but it's how we greet it that makes a difference on how well we go through that and learn from it and get the lessons that we're meant to learn.
Right. And it all has to do with consciousness. It all has to do with our living in our own minds and experiencing in our own minds. And so we invite you to have this attitude of gratitude and, in fact, give thanks in advance for all things, the good things and the bad, the laughter and the tears. And we hope that you found this information useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.